and I'm going to be our guest is going to be coming in via a phone call tonight. We're going to be talking about mythology and mainly kind of about how Joseph Campbell defined mythology and so forth. And so if we look at, let's say, in a sense, and this is kind of how I think about mythological stories. In a mythological story, as in um, a story that conveys a truth, but the story itself may not necessarily be true. It may not be factual, it may not be literal. And so our society today looks at the word mythology and sees it as, if you call something a myth, that is obviously a bad thing because it is not the story is not true, overlooking the fact that mythologies and myths convey truth and specific types of truth. And so if we look at, let's say, what and so it like a mystical truth or a psychological truth, or it just, it defines certain aspects of a of a truth. And so let me just see what I have going on here, and I may actually need to I am live now. I am live now. So um and so our guests here, we're going to be talking, some of the things we might be talking about is a little bit about alien dreams, but mainly I want to kind of talk about stories and narratives and so forth. And so if we look at, let's say, the Epic of Gilgamesh and Epic of Gilgamesh, which, some people can clearly see it this as a mythological narrative. But when it comes down to your religion, it's a lot harder to call your religion, your sacred stories of your religion, mythology. And so when people start calling, let's say, I grew up in the Christian church. I grew up in a Lutheran church. I grew up with the Bible. I've read the Bible, I don't know, I think 5 times all the way through. The last time I read it all the way through was probably maybe 20 years ago. And those stories are there with me. And I am perfectly comfortable calling it mythology or calling the Christian religion mythology, because my understanding of the word mythology is that of a story that conveys truth or it conveys an idea. And it has truth that is that you can learn from, something that you can learn from, but it doesn't have to be actually physically true. It doesn't have to be true, in a concrete sort of a way. I mean, did Jesus walk on water? I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter if that's true or not. If I look at, let's say, like one of my heroes of the United States, of Thomas Jefferson. I mean, Thomas Jefferson didn't believe that Jesus walked on water. I mean, there is a such a thing called a Jefferson Bible, and so Thomas Jefferson, though granted, he was a slaveholder, he was a human being. He had a lot of his flaws and foibles, and welcome Jacob, and welcome OX OPX. He had his flaws and his foibles and those kind of things. But what really got me about Thomas Jefferson is that he went through the Bible essentially with a razor blade, and he took out everything that he thought was a preposterous idea. So the virgin birth, gone. The resurrection, gone. Walking on water, gone. The loaves and fishes, gone. Turning water into wine, gone. Raising Lazarus from the dead, gone. And so, spam hat goes hard, yeah. And so anyway, you look at and so Thomas Jefferson was a spam is really tasty. I had some earlier today, but he was an Enlightenment thinker. He was a rationalist, and probably in our world today, Thomas Jefferson would probably be an agnostic. But he saw within like the red letter edition of the King James or whatever, he saw that there were these important truths that you could use to live by and so forth. And and so that is kind of the way. And so there's an understanding of stories, that stories can be true, but yet at the same time they can be complete fictions, like Star Wars, for instance. Joseph Campbell, I don't know, I guess people don't really know who Joseph Campbell is anymore, but Joseph Campbell was a scholar in in mythology, and he had a video series that it came out, I think, on PBS like 30 years ago, called The Power of Myth, with a Bill Moyers. Now he's been passed on for quite a few years. And um so let's see if we can do this without.
It looks like you have because you're buffering. It looks like you have because you're buffering.
Okay, all right. So
You
now
want me to?
now it's
Oh,
back on, because I just wanted to want So my guess is Sarah Tarot, Oracle of the Spirit, right? Did I get it right, or is that your old channel name?
Terra Norcal for the soul.
Of the Soul. That was close. But
Yeah, very close.
but anyways, we were kind of difficult coordinating here because we're coordinating a live call, and um and so forth, to be on, because we did this once before, and so it was much more comfortable for you to coming on as a voice than it was
Yeah.
to at this late hour. But nevertheless, so I disconnected my live stream for just a moment while I was going into the my phone to go pull a phone number out. So if anybody was there and then now they're gone, and okay, oh wait, whatever. But nevertheless, I was talking about. But that's good to know. You good to know that that if you are doing a live stream through the YouTube app, that it will disconnect if you
Yeah.
try to go another application on your phone. All right. Anyways, so Sarah here is so have you studied Joseph Campbell at all?
I have not personally studied Joseph Campbell. However, I know of him and I have friends who studied him. Um, I actually just picked up um, the book for the female because, of course, as we know, females' journey, what is that? The hero journey, the heroine journey is
Yeah.
different.
Oh,
So I just picked up the female version of Joseph Campbell's work. Let me tell you the name. Give me 1 second.
the
Um,
heroine of A Thousand Faces.
I think it's literally called like the heroine's journey. Let me see. I'm trying to pull it up right now. Okay. The Heroine's Journey, Woman's Quest for Wholeness by Maureen Murdoch.
So, how do you
Uh,
spell? I know heroin is spelled differently than heroin, but how do you spell the that so I don't get it confused with the hair with heroin?
Heroine apostrophe S.
OINE the heroines.
Apostrophe.
Then what was the rest of the title?
The Heroine's Journey, Woman's Quest for Wholeness.
Woman's quest for wholeness. And it's just one of those things that you're looking at, as you pointed out multiple times, that it seems that all the stories out there are not from the women point of view, and that how much there is a need for that in our society, and so forth.
What do you mean, unless there's always a need. It's just that the woman's quest journey growth is just suppressed because anything that's feminine, um, the divine feminine, the female story, the female aspect is always rejected, suppressed. I mean, people are, arguing that even women, are acting too masculine. I'm reading right now, I'm actually reading a book by Bell Hooks. I think it's called The Courage to Love. Let me look. Give me 1 second.
Welcome, Elizabeth. And can you hear my caller on the phone? I just want to make sure that is going through because I don't have. Uh, so you're smashing the like button, and so Elizabeth has joined us, and
Awesome. Hi, Elizabeth.
yeah, I hope that you can hear. You should be able to. If you can hear me, then you can hear her because her voice with through the speakerphone is closer to the microphone than I am. And so you just got the book of the heroine. So essentially the hero's journey for that. And so let's see, what does it say here? In the classic hero's journey is about slaying dragons, but the heroine's journey is about realizing the dragon and the self are part of the same inner landscape. Oh, okay. So it's more of the book, in a sense, it's more about mapping out one's interior world. Whereas, like with the heroes, like if you look at the Star Wars, and the heroes is all about the exterior world and the world outside of yourself. But it's really all that still is the world outside of yourself is a metaphor for the world inside of yourself.
Right. It's that whole philosophy, as above, so below. Like the ocean is the sky's the ocean. Um, and like, you know, what's happening within you is being projected out into the world and how you experience the world.
Yeah, because I was like thinking about this. What I was thinking about the other day was when we have these dreams, or if we take, let's say, the dream language of apocalyptic literature and that kind of stuff, that I don't know. I'm just gonna bounce this off you. I don't know if it sounds even rational, but I kind of almost see that it's intellectually lazy to look at, let's say, the book of Revelations and say that it's something that really happened, rather than
Right.
to say that, okay, what this dragon means. What does the dragon mean? Well, maybe that's your ego, or you have in order to reach a sense of enlightenment, you have to die to yourself in order to be in order to have a new spirit be born within you. And so in that sense, and that
Right.
way you
And
let,
that's so true.
yeah.
You have to slay your own dragons, as they say, which are represent your inner demons.
Mm-hmm.
And and we have we have so many fears as humans. Like, we're afraid of everything. We're afraid of our neighbors. We're afraid of our thoughts. We're afraid of our friends. You know what I mean? Like, we're afraid of how other people view us. And that fear is indoctrinated and, put into us at such a young age to
Yeah.
control us, to keep us consuming, to keep us, it's like that movie They Live. It's like when he puts on the glasses, he sees the sign, obey, obey, consume,
Mm.
sex, like reducing us as humans down to the most basic instincts. And that's like really sad.
Well, yeah. I I spelled maps wrong. I'm spelling maps. Well, I'm sorry, you're coming out. I'm coming out in the reversed form. But it. But then if we're looking at maps, spam is the map to the heart. It goes right through the stomach, right?
There you go.
But I know my little dog certainly loves spam, and but yeah, I think that is right. I think I was on to something when I was thinking about that. When you're thinking of, and also like I'm gonna have in a couple weeks. I'm gonna have a fella who has deconstructed his evangelical faith, and but he had I was reading his book, and this is where I kind of got a lot of these things. But I was like thinking about that. I was thinking about that whole thing of when we offload things like we offload personal responsibility to demons and devils.
Mm-hmm.
And so then by
Yes.
saying there these demons and devils, what we are actually are saying is that, oh, I'm not responsible for the things that I do. And then it's oh, some devil tempted me, oh, and that's why I did that bad thing because, oh, Satan was lurking under my bed and whispering into my
Right.
ear and all that. So it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's this devil over here. Or then as I think it's somebody else's fault. It's not my fault. And so in order to really, because if you if you let's say if you actually look at the of those three gospels or the gospel of Thomas, it doesn't say anything, really doesn't really say much about devils and demons. It just says that people have them in them and they're
Right.
casting them out, but it doesn't say that that's the reason why.
Right.
That's the
Well,
reason.
because I think you're right. I think, again, it's what you're saying. It's a mythology. And mythology is stories, and we create stories because our human brain needs to rationalize everything.
Mm-hmm.
But when somebody does something evil, now, do I think that demons are real? Yes. But um, again, it is a way for people to not take accountability or responsibility for their own actions. And you're a tarot reader. I'm a tarot reader. There's a lot of tarot readers listening. When people come to me for a tarot reading, again, that's a mythology. That's like their personal mythology. That's their personal story that we are reading for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, listen, this is a subconscious map to your soul, to your inner landscape, and it's gonna show your true desires, your true, like, what you are really Like somebody
Hmm.
will ask me a question, and then the cards don't answer it. It answers something else that they
That's
really
right.
wanted to know.
That's right.
You
Because
know what I'm
it's
saying?
yeah. Well, it's like okay. It's like the I guess I come from a point of view when it comes to like things in the world that I don't know that we can really make predictions about what's going to happen, like
No, we
with
can't.
politics or with like or even natural disasters. Are we can we make a prediction? Oh, can it get? Will it show that there's going to be a big rock that's going to fall down from the sky, or there's going to be a volcano that's going to go off in the future? I mean, there are going to all this stuff is going to happen because it
Of
has
course.
happened because it has happened in the past. But so when I look at people like thinking, oh, is this war going to devolve into a nuclear war? Well, it wouldn't surprise me if a nuclear warhead didn't get blown up in this thing. But I don't.
So here's my thing: is this is what I've learned from playing, and to me, it's a game. It's playing with tarot is not about predictions. It's about healing our inner landscape. So when we project, because the way that like I look at you, Bill, and what I see, I'm projecting my own inner world onto you. I'm projecting my beliefs onto you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And that it could be right or it could be wrong. And everybody does that all the time. They're projecting their inner beliefs, thoughts onto other people, unless that person um, is just an open book and is just, really loud and like always just says what they mean and means what they, but nobody's like that, right?
No,
Like
you're right because we always we have mask all the way up until the
all the
end.
time.
We're all masked up and
Yeah.
we're hiding
Yeah.
our and then there are even things about ourselves that we hide from ourselves because
Yep.
if we were actually to because there's a lot of things that are just so painful that we can't admit it to ourselves, and we have stuff like that, you know, and but what I was saying is the reason why I think one of the reasons why we can't make these physical world predictions is because it's like, well, if we could, then we would be able to predict what the next lottery number draws are,
Yeah.
and no,
Well, and we're not supposed to. So this is a conversation I've been having with a lot of people.
yeah,
We're not supposed to know. We're not supposed to know these things. We're not supposed to know the outcomes because life and every experience we have within life, it's about the journey, not the destination.
yeah,
And of course, because we're living in an inverted world, in an inverted time where everything that has meaning has no meaning and everything that has no meaning really is meaningful.
mm-hmm,
So, um, we put value on the wrong things, and so we value money and war and guns and violence over creation and love and um, humanity, and
yeah,
then we say, oh, well, we care about women and children, and we're anti-pedophiles, and we're against abortion, and make women who are miscarrying have a catch basket, and they have to submit their miscarriage to I don't know who. I don't know. That's just the latest thing I've heard that politicians are trying to abuse women with. And it's like, you know what? You don't really care about women and children, because if you did, all of these issues would have been gone a long time ago,
yeah, yeah,
so all these people are complicit in it, and it's not about protecting women, it's about controlling women, because again, these are all based, our laws, we say a separation of church and state, but as you see, there's no separation, because I mean, again, it's difficult to pull that apart, and you have people who are religious fundamentalists who don't think outside the box or think for themselves or question anything or question stories, and it's just easier to go along with the main, the story that's been told for the last 3,000 years.
mm-hmm,
um, it's easier to do that rather than, as Michael Jackson said, take a look at yourself and make a change, like the man in the mirror, like we really, 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 truly do have to work on ourselves. We have to meditate, because meditation has truly, truly proven to lower violence, to lower stress,
Mm-hmm.
to lower, like, it not only like calms us down, but it will calm down your outer world. And I think that's so amazing, that we really do have so much more power than they
Yeah.
tell us that we have. And, that was the whole point of the story and the mythology around Jesus, is that we have a lot more power. And he tells us we do.
Yeah.
But people love to offload their power. They love to, and I set really strong boundaries before I give a reading. I say, hey, I'm not telling you what's going to happen in 6 months. I'm not going to tell you, because it's up to you. These cards are not magic.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Well,
You have
yeah,
to
yeah,
live your life,
because people,
because
yeah.
there's too many people who want to be like, give as a tarot reader, give you their power, and they don't want to take any responsibility, and they stop
Mm-hmm.
working. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, the card said I'm gonna, get this job or this new boyfriend in 6 months. I don't have to do any work, and then it doesn't happen. Well, you're the idiot who stopped doing what you were supposed to
Well,
do.
that's true. And then it's like I was like a taking a friend to the food bank today, and if you, I have no shame in that way that I will go to the food bank and
That's good. You shouldn't. You
and
shouldn't. It's there.
I don't have an income, and it makes welcome Desiree, it makes your dollars go further. And then plus anyway,
Yeah.
I look at now, now at this point in time, this is the tribal food bank. I know that I've gotten my money back from the slot machines play that I've done through the years. And that's kind of how I when I first started going. That's how I kind of rationalized in my head. Well, I did, and then I did work for that tribe, and I'm sure that they got more out of me for my labor than they actually gave me.
Absolutely.
And so going to the tribal food bank, and it to me it just makes perfect sense, because because I look at things like that, or and I look at, let's say, okay, if you go apply for benefits like SNAP benefits or something like that, that, oh, I as a taxpayer, I'm just getting a tax return, because
Right.
so much of your tax dollars that go, what is it, 80 cents on the dollar that goes to the military. And granted,
Yeah, and it's only like 8 cents that goes to actual assistance or something like that.
yeah, yeah, and
And
so,
I would rather have it different. I would love 80 cents of my dollar to go to public assistance. I mean, I used to work for nutrition assistance, SNAP, issuing SNAP,
mhm,
cash, medical. And let me tell you, it was one of the most rewarding jobs, but the bullshit, the red tape, the pressure, like, it's inhumane the way that the government treats those employees. Like,
mhm,
um,
yeah,
it's like any job, but I can tell you on a daily basis at that job, especially in Arizona, on a daily basis, as employees, we were told, you are nothing, you are data entry, you know, the mental and emotional abuse they put their workers through. We used to joke that it was the boot camp of government agencies to work for. When I left that agency and went to child support, it was like such a huge shift, because
yeah,
they were just so abusive. And it's like, why do you have to abuse your employees? Like, what do you gain by abusing your employees and making it like so that it's so difficult? But that's how it is with like the state and the feds. Like, they
mhm,
don't want to issue these benefits. Yeah, it's our money, we're paying in, and I have no problem as a taxpayer
for that money
to
going
have.
there.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
I wouldn't mind seeing like 50 cents on the dollar go right into the space program. But that's me. That's me as a male. I'm and having that. We think of the exteriorness of it, and thinking, because when we sank, well, not just into the space program, but also to sink into education, like how they did from the Manhattan Project all the way through to to landing on the moon, because the government did, they just poured money right into education because they needed the engineers, they needed the physicists and the mathematicians, and we didn't necessarily have them, and they had a few of them, but to get the ideas out there, they poured tons of money into education all across the country, and then that's how we got all these wonderful innovations and everything else is through that, and you know, and that's the story as I understand it. That might be just complete mythology, that I'm it might be a myth that I'm but I seem to think that that was what the truth was, because in the 80s there was a shift in this country, and they shifted away from giving money to public education, and then that's when we have these sky high tuitions, and now it shifts
Yeah.
the burden to the individual to pay for their higher education, whereas because but really should be as spread out over the whole society, so that people could have a liberal arts education, that it didn't really matter that when you got done with your college degree, that you couldn't directly apply it to some kind of a trade or something like that. If that's what you want, then if you just want to trade, well, then you just go to become an electrician, or you go to become a welder, or you go to be a land surveyor, or a cook, or this or that. They have those vocation programs, but a lot of people can just benefit, because I think this is like in European nations, where they do um, put money out there for education, so that a person could at least get to like a bachelor's degree, because of how having that information can and that learning can help you to survive your job at the matchstick factory that you're going to have afterwards. You know what I'm saying? You have that job that's like incredibly boring, that you're going to have for the next 40, 50 years, and having some education can help. Did I lose you over there?
No,
Oh,
I'm just listening to
yeah.
you because I'm like going, who works 40 or 50 years at any job? Nobody stays at one job
Well,
for
people
40,
people
50
used
years.
to. People used to do that. So Jordan, you have a question? Anyway, so then he formulates a question in the chat, but if you have yeah, so you have the money that goes, that was funding money for that, rather than, granted, when whatever money that you put out from taxpayer money into society, there are benefits to it, even when they use it um, you know to do destruction and evil with it too, because I guess that's just how. So it's your turn to be a slayer, huh? The dragon
Oh yeah,
slayer.
you missed it on my live, Bill. When I went live last week, Desiree was slaying all my trolls, and so I'm blocking all the
Oh,
trolls
I see.
because he asked you an inappropriate question.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna put him in time out, but it is spring break, and so people can there's more of them. Well, last week's Friday Night Live, I was more I had a lot more inappropriate stuff that happened. Uh,
Yeah,
well, I
literally.
mean, literally, I ended up having to delete the whole live stream, because I wouldn't have. I said, well, once it went through the checks, I was gonna get, like, I would have ended up with a community strike on my channel.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, because it was like equivalent to, like somebody. Well, actually, they like it was displaying some pornography.
Oh no, that's not good.
Yeah, that's right. And it was like, oh my god! I mean, I couldn't get it off fast enough, and but then it was on there, so it was done, and it's just like, okay, well, you know, it's what it was, and I did do it through StreamYard, so that I was able to download if I wanted to edit the thing, but then I'm kind of looking at it, and I think, well, you know what? I don't think I'm going to spend any more time working on that live stream. We're just going to go forward, and that whatever I said in there in the first part of it, I can bring back later at a different time. And that's kind of
Yeah.
one of the beauties of having to welcome Bella. Yeah, having done that, but nevertheless, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so I think the power of myth and stories is really important, but aren't we tired of the same stories that have been told for, 3,000 plus years? I feel like it's time as society, um,
to create our
we've,
new ones, and but
yeah,
we
like
are,
human say,
but we
to
are.
create new mythologies. Like,
Oh,
I'm going to piss off a lot of people, and I'm sorry, I don't, I'm not, but I know you don't mind. It's time to like let go of the Bible. It's time
mm-hmm.
to, put it away. It's done. It's served its purpose. It's time to move on to new myths, to new stories, to new gods. Um, it's played out.
Well, that would be exactly what Thoreau said, and I gotta read. I went through Walden's Pond, I think twice on an MP3 book, and Mythic, have I ever smoked before? I had a tobacco addiction for I think 20 plus years, so yes, but I think that's not what you're talking about. And
That's
no,
not what he's talking
he's
about.
not
You're
what he's.
talking
That's
about.
not what I know what he's talking about, but that's not it because I don't really do.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, well, you know what? You can. You're welcome to do that. You're all you want, buddy. But but if you want to go, you can always go into another person's live and go and I don't know, but it is it's kind of funny though. Sorry, he's just being distracting. And anyways, I forgot what I was gonna say because I got distracted by his comments. And then my mind went to this. My mind went to this one YouTuber who made it her whole thing to suck in the trolls, but she said she would go like, "Oh, but if you're gonna say that, you gotta tip me $5 if you're gonna say
Yes.
that." And I'm thinking,
You know,
well, I would like to. Uh, so yeah, hey Curtis, yeah, and well, anyway, you just as long as you be respectful, Mythic, of the people here, that's fine. Uh, but yes, right, you did make me laugh, and but but you completely distracted me. But nevertheless, that's fine. Um, I have Sarah here who is less distractible than I am. Right?
I still get squirreled. Like I know I've started on a few streams of consciousness thoughts and then like get squirreled, but I think it's easier. When you're hosting a show, it's so easy. You're trying to like interact with everybody and like stay on topic and engage your guests, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So Bill, have just started reading Communion, A True Story by Whitley Strieber, the one that you told me gave you nightmares. And it's interesting that we're talking about myth and story because in his introduction to the
Hmm.
2022 edition, he writes an intro and he's talking about, how he was already an established author, and he a lot of people dismissed this book as just fiction.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he even talks about like how he doesn't really know if what he's telling in the story is fact or fiction, right? Like if what he remembers, like if he could trust his memory. And he talks about how, you know, even these encounters with whatever you want to call them, aliens, um, demons, whatever, um, that um, yeah, the inner reach of yeah, that if they insert stories, they insert like different images and things, and you know what, like if you really truly do believe in aliens or ETs or demons or whatever you want to call them, they can cloak themselves, they can change their appearance, they can like emit frequency that either changes your perception, or the perception of time. So it's really hard to tell, like, okay, what's fact, what's fiction, And if
Mm-hmm.
back in biblical times, 3,000 years ago, people were having contact with, let's say, let's just, because we're talking about ETs, aliens,
Yeah.
let's just call it aliens, because that's what a lot of the, like the angels, right? Like the seraphim, it's like really, one of the theories is those seraphim were really UFOs that people were seeing. Um, and a lot of the experiences, it's with, the Anna, I can't say the name, Anunnaki, is that how you say it?
Yeah, and something like that. I can't say it either because
Um, yeah, that they genetically modified us, and that's who the gods were in the Bible. And you know this as a biblical scholar. Originally, there were more gods mentioned in the Bible than just one God. There has always
yeah,
been more
yeah,
than one God.
there was, and
Uh,
and a lot of that is that there's a, well, I mean that's what I was like thinking when I'm thinking about Christianity, or as monotheism has cut out all of the other gods, and that they've done themselves a huge disservice by not having some of these gods that were there to help explain
es-
certain behaviors,
es-
like the trickster god.
Especially the goddess.
Yeah,
Like, they totally got rid of God's wife. Like, that's how much this world hates women and the feminine and femininity.
yeah. If you look at, let's say, Elaine Pagels, and when she describes, let's say, the Jesus myth, and so Jesus was born of having earthly parents, both mother and a father, but then having spiritual parents, both a mother and a father.
Correct.
And
Correct.
so you maintain your you maintain that there is this balance. There's a balance that's always being maintained, and between the masculine and the feminine. And so you really notice it within your. I've noticed this the few times that I have become unsingle, and I have been with other people, is that, welcome Desiree, and have a good night, is that there is a masculine feminine shift that occurs within me. So when I'm single, most of the time there's more of a balance, and there are both of those elements that are there. But when I am when I've had a relationship with women, that this shift moves away, and then I feel way more masculine. And so I think that it's that you kind of, when you're by yourself, you have that balance between the masculine and feminine. But then when you're in a marriage partnership or a partnership or whatever, then those spirits within you kind of separate, and so that you together you become a whole masculine and feminine person.
Yeah, I agree. Like, totally. And it's interesting that that happens, but yeah, it's true.
Yeah, or let's say I look at, like, one of my aunt. Well, she's passed on a while ago, but her she was very masculine, and her husband was very effeminate. but together they were a whole, because there was that those ways that people attract, and they're attracted to a, you know to that kind of, to gain that kind of a balance. But if she was with a masculine man, it would never, that relationship would never have worked.
No.
And but yeah, but that's for that. And so we
So
have.
do you? Oh,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead, go
To
ahead.
go back to like the topic of mythology and stories and the new Bible, do you think that like Star Wars or Star Trek should be like the Bible, the blueprint for us going forward? But I don't know if like sci-fi is the answer, Bill. Like I know in your mind it is because you're a man, so like you have that perspective. But for me as a woman, I want to see stories that are not about space, that are not about war, that are not about violence, that are not about the patriarchy. I want to see stories about community. I want to see stories about friendship. I want to see stories about the feminine. I want to see stories about um, I want to see stories about community and art and creativity. And,
Hmm.
that is what I would rather see going forward rather than,
Yeah, yeah.
more of the same. Because unfortunately, like AI and this new technology, robots going forward, it's the sexism and the racism and the patriarchy and the bigotry, it's all baked in. Nothing has changed. It's actually made it worse and more dangerous for women, as we can see from Haley Johnson 551, who I guess it's Haley is upset that he has a female name, or
Hmm.
Haley is a self-loathing female who is saying, and this is coming from a woman. I don't know what your point is, Haley Johnson 511, but if you don't like it, goodbye.
Yeah. Well, if you look at, let's say, stories now, if we look at stories like uh, Ann Tyler, she's an author I really love. I've read almost all of her books, and her stories are exactly what you would be relaying a truth about a man. Um, oh, your comment did show. Some of them did, but maybe some of them Haley didn't show. But because I have a lot of filters on this channel, and so I do filter a lot of things. But you have, like, let's say one of, um, I think their famous one was The Accidental Tourist, but then there was Saint Maybe, but then there was another story that she wrote that was called The Patchwork Planet that was way even better. But then there was another one called Ladder of Years, which one you would probably like that one. She was in a relationship with a, with the dream. It was like the high school sweetheart, and the guy became a, like a doctor or whatever, and she moved into his house. But then somewhere she had like they went to the beach, and I think because they're always like based all around Baltimore area, and so someplace on the east, they go to an island to go do a vacation, and then she walks out of the house one day, out of this in the vacation, and then she pops on a, like a Greyhound bus or something, and just vanishes and goes away someplace, and then she just gets off on some random town, and then gets a job, gets a room, and starts living a totally brand new, different life. Away, and doesn't tell anybody that she has a wife or has a husband or has children or anything, and she just leaves them all behind to go live this other life, to go off on herself, on her own, to live to become, and then in the end, it's like, does she? I can't remember. I think she ends up going back to her husband. I don't, but I think that maybe she just doesn't want to, because she wants to have that autonomy and that agency over her own life.
Right.
And yeah, and so what I guess what I was before I got distracted, I was talking about Thoreau, and one of the things that Thoreau talked about that I remember from this the audiobook, I wasn't able to find it in there, but that's, or maybe that's how I interpret it, was is that every generation needs to write its own it needs to write its own scriptures. Every generation needs to come up with its own holy books.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it needs to change, you know. Our world is vastly different. It's totally different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so just having these different stories, I get that. I get that.
Wow, it's so surprising, Bill, that like just talking about mythology and the need to be more inclusive of all voices and all experiences really triggers the trolls. It really triggers, and it triggers some of your, most basic fans who are on here and supporting you all the time. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really shocked at the lack of open mindedness and the
Well, it's that we have a more rigid viewpoint of how we think society should be structured, and just because that's the way it's always been doesn't mean that's the way it always is. I mean,
right.
and
And it
so
doesn't mean that it should continue to be that way either.
yeah.
And, um, you know, I know that we're going through a pole shift and we're also going through a shift from the masculine into the feminine. And that's why there's so much upheaval, and that's what everyone's feeling, and that's why everyone's like freaking out, and that's why we have what's happening because it's the death grip of the patriarchy dying and not wanting to like let go of power. And obviously that triggers some, very patriarchal women because, as Bell Hooks, the book I mentioned in the chat earlier, um, the power to change or the will to change, she talks about how women uphold the patriarchy in a way that even some men don't.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the patriarchy is all about literally beating the emotion out of everybody and making people like robotic. And emotions, as we know, need to be felt and experienced, and we need all the whole range of emotions in order to stay healthy, even physically. That's the whole philosophy behind somatic exercise and yoga and meditation is we need to process our emotions. We can't just suppress. Suppressing our emotions is what makes us sick. Suppressing our emotions is what causes energetically in the auric field. You develop disease before it becomes physical. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't process your emotions well, it's going to manifest physically because again, what you think becomes reality. So, a lot of people, a lot of your followers, I'm triggering them because, they're used to listening to you, and even though you bring up a lot of contrarian things against Christianity, they're used to you, and your biblical scholar, discussing the Bible and supporting that, which is fine. But, people getting upset and all hurt about, needing to change up narratives and change the story and
Mm-hmm.
accepting that the Bible and the Quran and the Torah and um, Star Wars and Star Trek are all the same. They're all myth. They're all mythology. The
Mm-hmm.
Greek gods, the Roman gods, you know, and at least back in the day, we had goddesses. There's, one theory that the Virgin Mary, we know obviously she wasn't a virgin, and that word, as all words, has changed over time.
Well, we don't
And
even know. We don't even know who, if Jesus was an actual person. We don't even know what who his parents were, because the very first gospel doesn't necessarily even talk about the gospel writer of Mark doesn't talk about the parents, and that comes later, and so those are just things you just don't really know. And so my guest is tarot and oracle for the soul, tarot oracle for the soul, and so that's my and that's my guest on the telephone here. And so anyway, so just please, those in the chat, just be respectful of you're welcome to voice your opinion, but just be respectful of others and so forth. And so why do I think that? Because I think that we go back a couple thousand years, and I can't go in and tell you exactly why. But what I'm saying it is that there probably was a historical Jesus, but the way that Jesus is portrayed through the church, that story really wasn't written until far later afterwards. And so if you're going back and to say that this most likely the Jesus was a character that was very much more like the Buddha, or like is it Vishnu, or no,
Vishnu
no,
or
it's
Krishna.
the like
Mhm.
Krishna, or if you were to say it was an infusion of a specific type of consciousness that was of a more of awakened consciousness, but whether it was that person, did that person walk on water, did they do all those things? Well, maybe, but I would be more inclined to go with, let's say, what did Thomas Jefferson? No, Thomas Jefferson it has a lot of negative qualities, but Thomas Jefferson was one of the founding fathers of the United States, and he thought that the virgin birth and all that was BS. He thought that the resurrection was BS. He thought that walking on water was BS, but he didn't think that some of those teachings of, like, love your neighbor and take care of your neighbor as long as they weren't one of your slaves was that was way a good thing, that you need to do these things to take care of the philosophy that existed, the philosophy the philosophy of the Jesus person that is portrayed is different than that those are values to aspire to, but whereas you have a lot of other things that there's a lot of, but then the thing is, when I talked about mythology in the beginning, a mythology or a myth is a story that relays truth, that conveys, is a vehicle for truth, but the story itself may be a complete fiction. So that's the thing, is that in our culture today, we're very literal minded, and we want to make it into a something that actually happened, but it doesn't necessarily matter if it happened or not, because
Right, because it's the meaning behind it.
yes, it's the meaning behind it. It's the meaning behind it.
So you had been asking me about Vivian Chavez, my friend,
Mm-hmm.
acquaintance from Phoenix, who says she's an Arcturian hybrid. And
Yes.
what she'll tell you is, and she's a scientist. Her full time job is, she's a scientist. She's a very educated
Yeah.
woman. But she will straight up tell you that not to read. Reading and myths are what keeps us indoctrinated within this matrix. And if we
Hmm.
want to ascend or we want to like move forward as humanity, we need to stop reading books. We need to stop telling stories. We need to stop like literally all the bullshit, because yeah, myths help us to rationalize things. It helps us to process emotions like I'm talking about, and feelings and stories and our experiences, and to feel less alone. However, they also keep us contained within old patterns and old ways of being,
Mm-hmm.
and and silence. You know, for women, it's the old story is, you know, you're a secondary character to men. Just support men and be silent. Um, so, you know, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, like 70 years ago, we couldn't have this conversation because it would be illegal, basically, right? So,
Yeah.
because I would be institutionalized for, you know, speaking my opinions. The trolls would literally be out there, you know, with their pitchforks ready to burn me at the stake, or throw me in a mental institution, or
Mm-hmm.
give me electroshock, because I don't fit their neat little narrative of um, sit down, shut up, and look pretty. And
Mm-hmm.
shut the fuck up. We don't want to hear about, you know, what shifts need to come. And, you know, if you say I'm defensive at your trolls, or, um, yeah, it's because trolls
They're not
piss me the fuck
necessarily
off.
trolls. These are people that are. I don't think that they're just people that are here, not necessarily trolls. But I think when she talked about this of not reading in books, what they were talking about is that our mythological stories are they keep us trapped and bound in the matrix because they represent this whatever simulated reality that we have. And so
Yes,
if we want to like
correct.
invent something new, we have to it's hard to invent something new and a new way of dealing with our issues if we just keep on referring to what we did in the past.
Right. And so when they say like, "Oh, we have to learn our history so we don't repeat it," well, we've always learned our history, but we're still repeating it.
Yeah.
So that theory is wrong. It's incorrect. We should have learned from our past, and those lessons should have been handed down and taught to us. However, they're not. Like you said, because we just keep reading the same book, we keep reading the same philosophy, the same theory over and over and over again, and it doesn't allow for creativity. It doesn't allow for thinking outside of the box. It doesn't allow for people to expand their mind. It doesn't allow for multiple voices. It doesn't allow for um, ingenious, you know, like, oh, okay, we have XYZ as a problem. Instead of continuing to do it like we've done in the past, let's try ABC instead. Let's give that a try. Or let's hear from, you know, people in Africa. Let's hear how they would take care of it, because it's going to be vastly different than somebody in America or Canada or Mexico, which is beautiful. And I think that's like the beauty of the internet, is learning that there's more than one answer. There's more than one philosophy. There's more than one way. And, you know, in that sense, the internet is beautiful because you get to learn, and you still get to feel connected and be like, oh, okay, like, you know, I'm having a human experience. But then it
Mm-hmm.
also does open you up to criticism. But I think that people brave enough to actually have platforms or speak, um, I think that's a really beautiful thing. And if, you know, you don't have to agree with everybody, but you also don't have to, um, you know, if you don't agree, you don't have to voice that you don't agree. You can just go make your own podcast and talk about what you believe in, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that that's the beauty of YouTube, is um, everybody gets a say, everybody gets a voice. But if someone, you know, you're watching someone and you don't agree, you don't have to say, you know, maybe respectfully you can, but there's ways to go about disagreeing
So yeah, so I had to. My mother was knocking on the door here. So
No
uh,
problem. So, like,
yeah,
I remember the 80s and 90s, you could sit down and have the coolest discussions with your friends and agree to disagree and, like, still be friends, you know? And I
yeah,
think we lost that because
yeah.
everyone wants to be right and everybody thinks that their opinion's the only opinion when we see that there's a whole wide world of opinions and philosophies out there.
hmm Well, there is, and then there's also a lot of the things is that this emphasis on literalism. I have troubles with that, especially with biblical literalism and because I think that it really does us a huge disservice to have to think, well, this is what it says and that's all there is, rather than to go in and look at, well, what does it mean? Because that's, I think, one of the things that people don't ask the question is, what does it mean?
Right.
And so
What
you
is the parable? I
what
mean, we're taught, like, in CCD or in Sunday school, that they're parables and that it's a deeper meaning. And to don't, I mean, I was always taught it's not literal. I was always taught that the Bible is not literal, that they are literal stories to
hmm
teach you a lesson. I mean, I think you're right. I agree with you 100% about the literal aspects of how the Bible is being taken because did they miss that Sunday in Sunday school or CCD
well,
or
I guess it
you
I
know
guess it depends, I mean, the literal what I mean, what do we got here? I got my a copy of the Bhagavad Gita came. Um,
nice.
and but as far as like what what is, let me see if I go into my Gospel of Thomas here. Of course, the Gospel of Thomas, which is not a it's not a Gnostic text actually. There are some who see that the Thomas Gospel was the it may have been the first one ever written, though
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of dated between like 80 and 150 because it's a collection of they don't it's classified as a Gnostic, but it doesn't have any of the flavors of any of the Gnostic Gospels. So Jesus says, if those who lead you say to you, see, the kingdom is in heaven, then the birds of the heaven will precede you. If they say to you, it is in the sea, then the fish will precede you. But the kingdom is within you, and it is without you. If you know yourselves, then you will be known, and you will know that you are the children of the living Father. So if you're looking always on the outside of yourself, you never will find it. It's like it's over there. It's over there. But then you never really look to see that it's within you. And so if you look at what, and one of the thoughts of you think of what the Christ is, and is that the Christ is a consciousness.
Right.
And
It
it,
is. It's
and it,
Christ
and it's, and it's a
consciousness.
it's a
It's
conscious
enlightenment.
it's a consciousness that comes, and it comes back all the time, and it's something that's always ever present. And so it's a consciousness that each and every one of you out there has access to. And I'm not, or maybe you only see it in glimpses. Maybe that's all that you get is a glimpse. And a lot of times that's all a person has ever gotten was a glimpse. And the king, and so to act out of that consciousness, now we don't, because we are keep on doing the same things over and over again. We respond with violence, and so forth. We are um, responding in that way. And so, but if you were to take those philosophies and embody them within you, because that's kind of what this is all about, then that kind of which is like takes a whole lifetime of like, you know, I haven't really read the Bible in 20 years, but I read it. I've read it 5 times in my life, and so, but you know, it's that. But then there are. I've read a lot of other things too. But I think when with her person that she was referencing is it said that in the scientist person that you what reading books can do to you is what is it? He says that it traps you in a particular frame of mind, and so that you can't really see anything else. And
Correct.
so, like, there was a
It,
guy.
it's like a cap. It's like if you want true knowledge, sit in meditation, sit in prayer, and you'll get true knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Although, yeah, that's right. Because if I look at, let's say, the poetry of Kabir, I guess that's one of the things. He was a 15th century Hindu Muslim saint, and he talked about looking through these holy books. All the holy books in the world, they're just words. I look through their
Yes.
pages one day sideways, and be see because the thing of it is that a lot of people, you know, the amount of literacy that we have in our world today is a lot more than what there used to be, because what there used to be is that people told you these stories, and so when we talk about the mythologies and why you know, I think I talked about this last week a little bit, where uh, uh, it can something can be true, a story can be true, and at the same time be a complete piece of fiction.
Right.
And so that and in that sense, and so I think I tried to say this last Friday, where it doesn't matter, to me it doesn't necessarily matter if the story is true or not. I don't need I don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that piece of information, and can so when I looked at the Christian mythology, I don't necessarily need it to be factual. I don't need it to be factual. And I remember, I think 30 years ago, telling somebody that, and they said, well, what, you know, it was like that was like something that was unbelievable, is that you that it didn't need to be factual, and you know, there were things about it that I felt like were true, but at the same time, you know, I didn't necessarily believe. I don't think I did believe it was factual at all.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, but nevertheless, that was just in answering some of the things that are in addressing some things in the chat, and so forth. But you know, we all have are different religious traditions in this world. And my basic, I think I'm going to probably say this. It'll probably get me into trouble, but I think that when we exit this place, all of the stories that exist here, they stay here. They stay within this sort of this reality that we're in, and whether you be and so whether it be this one or that one or that one, that it hold on a second. I gotta go attend to something, and I'll be right back, so please do not go away. I'll be right back.
Okay.
I'm gonna pause the thing so everyone knows. So I caregive for somebody, and so I have some stuff. Anyways, my name is Bill, and my guest's name is Sarah, and so she's been on my show several times, and she's going to be on again a lot more times too. So, um, and I've been on her show, and so yeah.
Yeah. So, I think it's interesting that. So, did you know, Bill? I don't know if you, because you said this book gives you like major trauma.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I was actually
but
looking at the cover, and I was like getting nightmares just looking at the cover.
the author says that he received all these letters from other people after the book came out, and that all the letters are at Rice University in Houston, Texas. Kind of makes me want to take a road trip to Houston, Texas, and like go through and read all the letters and see. I still need to go to the research center here at the UFO Museum, and read the accounts and read all of that stuff because they have a library with a lot of the same stuff. And yet I'm here and I still haven't gone to the research library, but I keep meaning to go and see what they have on their files and on their records.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I would love to go to Rice University and read these experiencers' letters. And did you know he has a website too?
Well, I figured so because I've seen a lot of Whitley Strieber's talks and so forth. I believe that Sarah can read the chat. She can read the chat, so she's reading the chat. So
No, I'm not.
you're
I
not.
For my mental health and for my boundaries, and so as a woman, women, part of the heroine's journey is learning to say no and set boundaries. So
Okay.
my boundary is I'm not reading the chat. Um, people can. That's another reason I like being on the phone rather than on camera. Not only because I don't have to be seen, but the last time it felt really good to me because I wasn't reading the chats, and
I see.
I should not be reading your chats because again you have a different audience than I have.
Yeah, yeah.
So for me, I people don't know what's going on in my life and they don't know what's going on
And
in your
that's
life,
right because that
and
we don't.
so
Yeah.
they don't know what triggers. And again, I don't know what triggers them either. But you and I are having a discussion, so
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be. It's your show. These are your followers. They're your people. So
Mm-hmm.
for me to be respectful of your followers, it's better I don't read the comments because what they think of my opinion is really none of my business. I don't care. Because again, if they feel something different, they can go on their own show and say what they believe, and have
Mm-hmm.
their own following. And I don't need to, it's not that I don't want to be disrespectful to any of your followers. So, they're welcome to their opinions. But you and I are having a discussion.
Yeah, we
So,
are, and so my opinion of Mary is that do I think that she's a perpetual virgin? But I think what I'm seeing is that there is a Mary that is the goddess like Mary, like the Holy Spirit, part of the Holy Spirit.
right, weren't
And
you saying that the Holy Spirit was the feminine aspect and they made
yes,
it
the
like
feminine
neutral?
the feminine
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit was seen at one time as the feminine aspect, but then after the 4th century it all flipped. It all flipped.
Yeah.
And so all this stuff flipped. So you're looking at what you're looking at is with the church, you're looking at the Roman viewpoint. And you're looking at and Rome was very patriarchal, and I don't think that my guest is a mean and bitter person. She's a very warm and kind person.
I
but
am. I really, truly am. I love all people,
and it's
and
just
that,
that
and I,
they're interpreting you because of a sense of what you're coming across as having grievances as a female, which is there is we have our society is very anti-female, and to point out that to point these things out, that sometimes it comes off um, as being a angry kind of a thing, and but I don't get that energy from from Sarah at all. And I like to have Sarah on my channel because I like her energy, if I can say that, because I like that because I like the conversations we have, because she's very intellectual, and there's not that many people in my world that are intellectual in that way. And so what I like that because I like that play. So for me, if
right,
I were to look at my own myth, my own story, my myth is that one of the things that I like is I like to play, and I like to play with ideas. And
right,
that got me in massive trouble when I was studying theology in graduate school, is because I played with ideas. And a lot of times the professors didn't like the fact that I played with ideas
right,
from,
because they're part of the matrix. It's
yeah.
part of keeping us indoctrinated, enslaved, and an old energy. And
Mm-hmm.
I would just like to point out to, I mean, people don't know me again, but I was a women's studies major in college, a psychology minor, and I could have minored in world religion. I have studied religion. I have studied uh, Hinduism. I've studied Islam. I've studied the Quran. I've studied the Bible. I have studied world religions. Um, and I've studied shamanism on my own time. I've studied Wiccan. I've studied, you name it. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a book about it, I've read about it, and a lot of things I've even experienced. And I have friends from all over the world, and I talk to people from all over the world because I'm curious and I'm open minded. And I don't shut down people, and I don't accuse them of, I don't, again, this is what I was talking about earlier. We project our own shadows onto people and our own
Mm-hmm.
beliefs. And that's what your viewers are doing to me. And that's fine. They don't know me. But I appreciate you, Bill, by, for saying that, because I pride myself on putting out good energy and good vibes. I do Reiki. And so energy is very important to me. But I'm also, as a woman who is in her fourth decade, I also have had a lot of experiences where I'm just tired, and I am no longer afraid of speaking up and using my voice and speaking on how I view the world. And that triggers people, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and after, being a women's studies major and majoring in that, and like experiencing the pushback in my professional and personal lives of like being very quiet about that, of not telling anyone what I majored in, just being like, yeah, I have my bachelor's degree, and just being like, it's in psychology. That's omitting a part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And why should I have to do that for other people's comfort, right? Um, but it shouldn't be a trigger that I enjoyed learning women's history. That's all women's studies is studying the history of women, studying the lost voices of half the population, of learning the other part of history. Why do I have to just learn one aspect of it? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I love learning about religions because I believe that every religion has truth, and where they all intersect is where the truth is. But I also love Vivian Chavez, my alien hybrid friend in Phoenix, her philosophy of don't read books, because I see where she's coming from. It took me years to understand what she was meant by that, because that is again a big trigger for me coming from an intellectual background,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I love books. I collect books. I read books. I read religious texts from all over the world. Um, and so to hear that, it's like very triggering. But now it's been maybe 6 years since she said that to me, and it clicks. It's like, okay, I get it. I get it. And that's, another thing, in the New Age community, they talk about ascension and how we have to get over, like you're saying, the literal thinking. We also have to get rid of black and white thinking. We have to get rid of duality and understand that our shadow aspect,
Mm-hmm.
aka what we were talking about earlier, the demons, that
Yeah.
is us. We are the demons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who
That is
does
the.
who does the evil on earth? We do. And
Well,
we do
yeah.
it to ourselves and we do it to each other.
It's.
We are the demons, but we are also
Mm-hmm.
the angels. And we, in some
Mm-hmm.
theories, the grays are us in the future. So we are literally all one. That is the truth. We are all one. Another truth is, and this is like, this is advanced. Let me, something, when you pass away, unless you want to be reincarnated again, you do not go into the light.
Yeah, I've
Do
heard
not
that.
enter the light. The light is part of the matrix.
Hmm.
Um, so you want to go into your heart chakra. I used to watch Max Spears. He was a conspiracy theorist. He was amazing. I loved watching his stuff. He was so truthful, and that's what he talked about. Do not go into the light. You go into your heart chakra. So it's so important to be balanced, to work with the chakras, to know what the chakras are, to know how to access it, and also how to meditate and how to pray. Those things
Mm-hmm.
are so important.
Yeah. Well, one of the things here is kind of confusion is that okay, human beings do a lot of evil things, but oftentimes what we do as is human beings is we offshore our we don't take responsibility for our own actions. Instead, we say it was some demon who did this.
Right.
And so what Sarah is saying is that um, these hands are God's hands, and these hands are the devil's hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so by taking responsibility for your actions instead of saying, "Oh, it was a devil," but see there is within ourselves there's both a shadow self and a light self. So for instance, you rise in the light, but then also your shadow also kind of. I don't think that Sarah's playing a victim here.
Oh no! Do not ever call me a victim. I am putting accountability on readers, so I don't know where they're getting the victim mentality from.
I think it's
I
because
guess they,
I think
I guess
where they're
they,
getting it,
they
it's coming out of. I think it comes out of political perspectives, and
yeah,
there
and
is a.
they're not listening with their heart. They're not listening with their heart open because they've just totally, whoever's saying that, like, has just totally shit on everything I just said. I literally just said, uh, women's studies is learning history. Women's studies is learning uh, female voices and the female experience through history.
Mm-hmm.
There's no victim and victim. That's history. I don't
Well, and
know
it's
why.
all
It's just,
it's also there's an association that if you are a strong woman and you assert your femininity, that it means you feel superior to men and that you hate men, and that's also coming out in the chat as well.
well, if I hated men, I wouldn't be on Bill's show, right? And I
and
wouldn't be friends with Bill.
and you wouldn't be
And
and you also wouldn't be married either.
right. and I wouldn't have my husband, and I wouldn't have the male friends that I have. So that's why I got off the chat, because I don't need to hear other people's projections. And I have a feeling though that your viewers are very young, like teenagers and 20s. It's just the experience that I was seeing
Mm-hmm.
while in the chats. And, when you're young, you have a lot of arrogance and you're very indoctrinated. You're fresh out of school, you're fresh out of being raised in the religion of your childhood. And you know what? We all have to go through those growing pains of life, um, being real and experiencing. And
Well, and that's true. And when you say that, because I can remember that when I was younger, I had a harder time listening to the voices of women at all.
right, exactly. And that's the problem with the red pill sphere is, um, men do not want to hear women speak at all, period.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's been studies shown that um, men do not like the sound of women's voices. So, I'm triggering them, and that's fine, but that's their issue to work through. And I wish them the best of luck on finding a wife. And that, they'll be like, witch, listen to that evil cackle. She's a witch. She's a witch. Um, and yes, I am. Thank you very much. But it does not mean that I'm evil or that I'm bitter
Mm-hmm.
at all.
I guess that
But yeah.
one of the people in the chat is offended that you called her a self-loathing woman.
Oh, but she is. Women perpetrate the patriarchy just as much, if not more, than men do. Um, there's benefits, especially if you're a pick me girl, um, and you believe that a man's validation is the highest form of um, praise you can get. Hearing a woman speak with confidence is triggering, and it's okay. Again, it's called being young and wanting that validation, and wanting to
Mm-hmm.
play the good girl, of wanting to be quiet and liked, and to be, um, you know, uh, consumable for men. Which again, it's natural, it's normal, especially if you're in your teens or 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's again something, men have to unpack their patriarchal upbringings and beliefs, and women, you've done the work, you've unpacked that. I would say that um I wouldn't call you a woman hater. I don't, you're not a red pillar, like pill person. And it's just like, it's, even though I studied women's studies, it's still taken me 20 years to unpack the patriarchal beliefs that I was raised in. I mean, I am a Catholic. So, of course, again, my father is from Italy. That's, the Roman Empire. Like, it's still very, very patriarchal, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot to unpack. We all have our issues and our shadows. Absolutely. Um, and it takes time, and it takes age, and it takes some wisdom, and that
Well,
comes
and,
with time.
it also takes being somewhat comfortable with yourself and your own skin,
Right.
which also comes in as you get older because, I mean, this is like a is a side this is a side here, and I had this conversation with one of my neighbors a year ago about how when you graduate from high school and she was really popular, but she had the same experience that I did. Similar was is that you graduate from high school and you believe you're ugly, and because you go through the meat grinder of
Mm.
adolescence, you go through the meat grinder of, and by the time you get on down through that, everybody, most people graduate and become come and go into adulthood thinking that they're ugly in one fashion or another, but at the same token, most people, by the time they they enter into their, in their 60s, they start to see themselves as beautiful because, you get more you've started to whittle away at many of those stories that
Right.
you have
Exactly.
these stories that these programs that you have, and you have these voices in these programs that are they're talking when you are trying, and so to try to bit uh that you have the, so you, and so as you get as you grow up and you get older, you start to unmask yourself, and you start to become yourself, become who you are, just who you are, and to be comfortable with who you are as a person, and so forth.
And it's really important to have friends who are older than you. It's really important to have mentors. I mean, I've had mentors for the last 20 years. I've had mentors for the last 40 years, right? I We're always learning. I just met this amazing woman in her 60s, and she's my mentor, and we should always be learning and listening, um be, like I said, open, like don't have triggers. um you know People, like you said, who are confident within themselves, it's scary to people. It's like they're so scared of speaking up in their own voice that hearing somebody else who they maybe relate to, or maybe they don't, or they think they would, and hearing them speak a way that they would never dream of, it's triggering. And but if you can have an open heart and open mind and learn something, then that's
Mm-hmm.
cool. That's so cool. And I think that a lot of times when we're young, we think like we know everything. We know it all. Like nobody can tell us anything. Like everything's easy. The world is our oyster. I'm going to go out and conquer it. Well, give it 20 years. You realize you can't. There's no conquering it. Again, the only
Mm-hmm.
conquering that really happens is within ourselves. Getting comfortable with ourselves, getting comfortable with our bodies, our faces, our thoughts, our voice. You know, I heard this thing. I don't know where I heard it, but it was saying that religion doesn't really, not religion, but traditional religion that's bathed in patriarchy is not helpful to women. The message is to go, serve community. Well, women already are taught that. Women are already taught to give and give and give. So religion is set up to really, truly for men by men, which is fine. Um, to teach men to be civic minded, to support their community, to be less self centered, right? Because men are so self. This is, you know, men are self-centered. They have no problem saying no. They have no
So
problem
so
setting boundaries. So it's to teach them to be giving, to um, think of others, to think of their community, right? Well, women already do that. What women need to learn in spirituality is to set boundaries and to say no and to use their voice. Yeah, traditional religions do not teach that, but that's what women need. Women already know how to be silent. Women already know how to
mm,
listen. Women already know how to submit. Women already know how to give. Women already give and give and give and give. And my problem with traditional religion, and this is because I see it within my own mother, is she gives and gives and gives and gives and gives free labor to the church, right? But
mm-hmm.
she's not seen as an equal within that religion. So it's extracting labor, and that's something that cults use. Um, and of course, we know all religions are cults, and there's different varying degrees of cultiness, per religion. Um, but that's a problem. I think that women should learn to say no, and should be able to have a say within the church and within politics and within the world. And that's just, what's so scary about having a woman be confident, like honest discussion, like pivots, and
Well,
people really want to know
the
what is it that scares men so much about that,
the
and
yeah, the church that I grew up in had a woman pastor, and when they hired the woman pastor, it actually drove a lot of the people out. There's a lot of the people
yeah,
who left, but she was like she stayed, and she died young. She had a lot of health problems. She died young, and she stayed probably longer than she should have, but because of her health problems. But she was really knowledgeable of as a preacher. She was a really good preacher, and so forth. But when you mentioned about, I was thinking about the Epic of Gilgamesh again, and with in the Epic of Gilgamesh, and this is a really an early mythological tradition, a story, and you had like Enkidu, which was like a man. The Enkidu character had was like an ape man with a wild man, but for the taming of Enkidu happened because a woman tamed Enkidu, and Enkidu then became a human being. And but then once Enkidu was tamed, because you said about that there was the with the idea of religion and with men and, and needing to becoming civic minded,
mm-hmm.
that well, if you need to go, Haley, go ahead and go. That's fine. Um, you don't, you don't have to be here if you don't want to be here. And but so you have Gilgamesh, and Gilgamesh was kind of part god and part human. So if you're just looking at that, so he was sort of the an offspring of the gods, and then he was the king of the land. But the people in his kingdom were complaining about this Enkidu character who was running with the gazelles and running wild, and they were taking food out of the crops and doing all kinds of things that human beings weren't supposed to be doing. And so then Gilgamesh, consulted with the goddesses on how to handle Enkidu. And then they gave a solution, and then the solution was to put a woman at the watering hole where Enkidu and all the animals came, and then you it that they what was I going to say? So the woman, anyway, they civilized the Enkidu, and then Enkidu went off and became a more full human being. And so that was what that role was of, and like you said, it was like you said that the church's role was to sort of not make men more unmasculine, but to make them more able to fit into a civilized society and a more genteel society. If
Right.
that's the words of it. Yeah.
But see, I don't know what happened where that belief, like that belief has left the chat, like it's gone. I don't, you know what I mean? Like it's almost like now religion is being used as a tool to just suppress and oppress anyone and everyone who is not. And I like this new
Mm-hmm.
term, and I'm going to start using it, the Epstein class. And now it just seems like it's, it's the mask they said, like, 2020, 2020 vision, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can really see, like, we thought the end of the world, the old world would be 2012. Well, it seemed like it's really 2020, right? Like, nothing's been the same since 2020, because a lot of our beliefs were ripped away, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
of what we were told, we realized were lies, right? And now we have entered into a new age, and that age is, disclosure. We are in the age of disclosure. Um,
Where things are
there are,
becoming known. Things that were hidden are becoming
right,
known.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, there are UFOs, there are aliens. There's as above, so below. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
kind of believe this philosophy that um, the um, squid and octopus and the whales and dolphins in our oceans are the true aliens. They have alien DNA. They are the aliens. So if we explore deep sea, we do a deep sea exploration, the aliens are actually in our oceans, because the atmosphere above us is actually more like the ocean. So again, that's the reflection, as above, so below. Um, so I don't know if you've watched this show. It's like one of my favorite shows. It's
Mm-hmm.
hilarious. What's the? Oh, it was on the Sci-Fi Channel. I'm drawing a blank. Uh, it was this really funny alien show. Oh, what is it called? Do you watch any new sci-fi shows?
No, I haven't really been watching too much new shows. The last show that I watched was The Expanse, and I watched it a couple times, but that was a few years ago.
Oh, okay. It was on the Sci-Fi Channel, and it just ended. I want to say last year or 2024. I don't remember. The years kind of
Mm-hmm.
really. Um, but it was hilarious, and it was about this alien who crashes into Earth, and he can't leave, and he was sent here to, like, destroy the Earth, because humans, were are destroying the planet, and then because we're destroying the planet, it's destroying the universe,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so he came to destroy us. However, the longer he stayed, the more human he became, and he ended up falling in love with humanity. Um, so he couldn't destroy the Earth. It just ended. It had that guy Alan. He was in Firefly. He was
Oh
one of the
yeah.
actors in. Do you know who I'm talking about? Alan,
Was he the redhead guy,
the blonde.
the
Alan
blondie, the pilot?
Tudyk. Tudyk. Tudyk.
Oh, let me see. Let me go look up Firefly's characters.
Resident Alien from 2021 to 2025. So
Oh, okay.
anyway, he goes to talk to his people, and he's in a seafood restaurant, and he's talking to, like, I think it's a squid or an octopus, and it's an alien. So it's like, I feel like that's, how sci-fi and TV, a lot of shows tell you the truth in plain sight, right? So they're like
Mm-hmm.
that these squid and, these animals, these sea creatures are actually the aliens. And then there's that, a lot of UFOs are seen over water, and that actually, the bases, they're not off world, they're actually in our oceans, because that's true space. Like, I don't know if this is making sense, but you should watch that show if you haven't seen it. It's amazing. It's so hilarious. Alan, who plays Harry, is so funny, and it just gives faith to humanity, and it makes you, when the news and the world gets too heavy and you watch this show, it just, I don't know. It's, again, one of those myths that it's just like, but it's a feel good myth, right? It's a feel good
Mm-hmm.
mythology that aliens could fall in love with humanity, that aliens could learn to have feelings, that aliens could, like, want to save humans, even though we have this shadow aspect that is hell bent on destroying ourselves and everything around us, right? Um, so it's a
Hmm.
hilarious show. It's so good. I highly recommend it.
Yeah. Have you seen the movie Paul?
I haven't. You've mentioned it. I need to see it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, that was a good film. One of my friends, she um uh she recommended it to me.
Oh, cool. I can watch it on Tubi. I can watch Paul
Yeah.
on Tubi, so I'm gonna have to watch it.
Well, what kind of a reception that what I've seen here, and I'm tracked the chat. I'm not really meaning to be disrespectful of anybody, but I was thinking of a lot of one of my theater professors a long time ago, who said that essentially the worst kind of response that you get is one where people don't care one way or another about what you say or what goes on. But if it's like if everybody hates it, that's bad. If everybody loves it, that's bad. But if it's something like a mix between half the people hate it and half the people love it, that's like your best thing. But sometimes when your words are taken in that nobody really likes your words, that can sometimes mean that it is a very effective kind of a message because it sort of cuts in. So it's, or if you look at like Jesus's message, where that is actually one in which um, it is not very well received into the world to love your neighbor or to love your enemy. Because a lot of what loving your enemy means is you have to do a lot of self reflection. And part of that self reflection is, can you see yourself in that other person?
Right.
And that's something that being able to see yourself in that other person. And so when there is the story of the stoning of the woman, and he says, he who is without sin can cast the first stone. Well, nobody was without sin, so nobody could cast those stones. And I'm sorry that your mother died, Jordan. I really there's no pain that is worse than when you're losing your parents, and that's at any age it's very hard to lose your parents, and when you lose your parents when you're young, that's even worse.
Yes. My
I
condolences to you too. That's sad. It's hard.
Yeah.
Time is the only thing, and it's still, it's still gonna be hard. A really good book that helped me get through grief was called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." Excellent book, and it says just be gentle with yourself and take time to grieve.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, it is hard. It is hard because like I remember when my dad was killed in a car accident, and um, for 3 years afterwards, when I saw a truck coming up the road that looked like his truck, I thought, oh, my dad's coming home. That was
Oh,
like that for no, like up until the funeral. I would go out to the ditch where he died, and I just go sit in that ditch right off the side of the highway for like 3 or 4. I think it was like it was up until the funeral. I didn't go back after that, but I drive by that area all the time because if I go to the grocery store, I have to drive by that spot to go to the what that and I caregive for my mother, she's 86. She just turned 86 just a few days ago. But yeah,
happy! Did you make her a cake?
I did make a cake. I made a cake, and since her her blood sugar went up. She didn't like the fact that it was had less sugar in it and a
Oh,
lower. But that's the way it is. But my you don't really need to give condolences. I was just giving a fact. The fact is, my father passed away 13 years ago. I think it was 2012. Yeah. Anyways, and so, anyways, that's what we got for today, I think. And it is what 10:30. We've been on. You've been on for 2 hours, just about 2 hours. And so I'm gonna wrap this show up. You can just stay on the line there, and I'll be. But I want to thank everybody for coming into the chat. I want to thank Jordan. I'm thanking everyone. Granted, you didn't like my guests, and that's fine. You don't have to like all of the people that I have come on my show. I have a lot of people. I'm gonna have on the 7th. I'm gonna have an ex-evangelical person come on the show who probably will be just as negative towards Christianity and so forth. And so that'll be on a Tuesday afternoon because he's on Eastern time. So I want to thank everybody. Thank you, Bella. Thank you, Haley. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you, Luke. And you all have put out a lot of good. You're there, for for Diane. Thank you as well for being there. And I really do appreciate that you all were here to listen to my show for today. And so for the month of April is National Poetry Month. And so next Friday I'm going to probably do something story related again. And I'm going to probably just go into this idea of mythology a little bit more. I wanted to prepare a little bit more about things. No, Sarah's going to be back. Sarah's one of my friends. Um, but maybe not at this time. But nevertheless, in this time spot. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about mythology and mythological stories and so forth, as far as um, and and so forth. And so that's probably what I'm going to have the topic next Friday night as well. And so I really appreciate everybody being here. I just want to let everybody know that I appreciate your support for pushing the like button, and for those who push the sub button. I appreciate your support. And we'll be back here doing something else. I think next Thursday I might. Yeah, that's right. It's Poetry Month, so I'm going to see if I can get a poet or somebody to come on with me next week if I can, but it may not be possible because all the poets I know are all are are all pretty busy or whatnot, and so that's kind of what I got going on here. We'll see what happens. And so anyway, that's all I got for you guys. Thank you very much. I've been on here 2 hours, and the battery's about gone on the phone. I do have a different kind of a hub. This here does pass through charging, and so I have one that doesn't have a charge right now. So I have my mic plugged into it, and I have my Ethernet plugged into it. And this one here allows with power too. And so I got to get that hooked up. And so, and thank you, Diane. Thank you very much for being here. And good night, everybody, and we'll see all y'all the next time. Bye bye.